All right, people, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, folks of all genders around the world, wherever you might be, welcome, one and all. This is Brews and Baseball, episode 8 of the podcast edition. Thank you all for joining us on this fine evening. He's Reese, I'm Owen. We have a fantastic show lined up for you today, and we're just going to jump right into it because I want to start off today's show with a little bit of a soundbite from this morning. And for those of you who follow me on Twitter, if you're not following me on Twitter at boba_poppy, you should be doing so, because not only do you get to see some of the BTS stuff, some extra just content from me, but you also get to hear wonderful sound bites that I retweet like this one. So I'm going to play this for you all in the background. Reese, I don't know if you've seen this one, but it's the Christopher Russo clip from this morning. I don't know how to get you the audio too, but I'm going to play it for our listeners, and I'm going to break it down because it's actually an abomination that this clip was allowed to air on national television. So I'll just let it play. And those of you at home who are unfamiliar, I've got some commentary on this. So this is about the World Baseball Classic, specifically last night's AB between Ohtani and Mike Trout. Have a listen.
We're going to make this out to be an epic at bat. Really? What is Gibson and Eckersley then in the World Series in Game 1 when Gibson hobbled around the bases and hit the home run against Eckersley, Dodgers A's in '88, one of the great home runs in the history of baseball?
World Series. Absolutely.
But hold it now. Did you see the headlines today? Epic at bat. Incredible moment. What? Yeah, but why? Because they're teammates? I mean, and Trout does nothing but strike out. Trout struck out twice in the game. He strikes out. You know, everybody talks to me about Trout and DiMaggio. I mean, Trout strikes out 175 times a year. We're going to make this out to be an epic at bat.
All right, so for those of you who weren't able to kind of understand the context of that, Christopher Russo is one of the columnists for First Take, previously held by Max Kellerman and a handful of other people, notably Skip Bayless before that. But he is known in baseball circles as Mad Dog, Christopher Russo. And I say that in a respectful way because he's been in the industry for a long time. He's established. But what he said basically, and Reese, I don't think you heard the clip, but
no, I did.
Yeah, so effectively what he's saying is that Mike Trout versus Shohei Ohtani, the storyline and the matchup that we had all begged for as baseball fans in the World Baseball Classic final when Japan beat the US 3-2 yesterday, he basically said, yeah, there's nothing special about it. And people are comparing Trout to like DiMaggio, and Trout strikes out 175 times a year. Trout does not get compared to DiMaggio. I don't know who he's talking to. B, Trout has struck out more than 100, I think it's more than 140 times one time in his career, and that was in 2014 when he was the American League MVP. And thirdly, Trout versus Ohtani was one of the most iconic matchups in baseball history last night. And for someone with that sort of established following and platform to spew out that kind of nonsense, it hits me in a really, really, really unfortunate place, and I'm very close to just not caring about the quality of the commentary that I give in a sports perspective, because at the end of the day, it's not about the quality of your analysis. It's not about the quality of what you're saying. It's about how loud you can be and how inflammatory you can be. And that's all his platform is, and it's just sickening that a moment like that gets basically ruined by someone who's been in this game for forever and should know better.
Yeah, I'd say who cares? I think we are starting to see more and more of the bigger sports analysts, as twere. It's not necessarily about the analysis. It's how to get the clicks. It's how to get the social media fires going. And Mad Dog, I wouldn't even say he's like top 5 in the business. I think in terms of what we look for baseball analysis, he's kind of one of those fringe guys. Sure, he's been around for a long time, but look, I'm not too upset about it. He can say whatever he wants. And I think this is also just indicative of just sports analysis in general. I'm of course thinking of most recently in basketball when Kendrick Perkins was claiming racism in the MVP voting this year. You know, it's just like I think we're seeing a transition into a trend where it isn't about the analysis. It's about the emotions behind it. It's to say the things that they know they could get sound bites for and clips so we can fall hook, line, and sinker like this.
Yeah, and
'Cause
I've
now he did his, as far as I'm concerned, he did his job.
no, exactly. That's the problem, and I try not to retweet stuff like that, and even to add my own commentary when we hate on it, because that's exactly what his goal is as a columnist for a show like First Take. The only problem I have with that is you have, in the context of a sport that has been kind of pushed to the periphery, at least in the general consensus, we have an opportunity to grow the game exponentially, right? And the discourse, and I get it, he's one person, he's not an entire media conglomerate, but the fact that his platform is the worldwide leader in sports on a prime show on the worldwide leader in sports, to me is a problem. And the only reason that I would engage with it is because it's just way over the line as far as I'm concerned. But that said, that doesn't change what we have a disagreement.
Oh, look, was it a good matchup? Yes. Do I think it detracts from the World Baseball Classic and the impact? No. I think the numbers and analytics speak for themselves. The viewership numbers have grown exponentially. And I think that's 10 times as more important than a comment from, frankly, an analyst that doesn't have as much credit or at least clout to his name as, say, somebody like a Dan Patrick or a Chris Berman or any of those guys who've been doing this for a long time and who have gained reputations of not only being great analysts, but also analyzing it in a way that seems impartial and not reactionary. Because when I listen to that audio, it just seems very reactionary off of the top. You can tell that he's emotional about it. Oh, but this is that to me alone already discredits it in a way. It's just a canary, not a canary in a cold mine, but it's the one naysayer, and you just kind of say, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean the problem I have with it is
go in your kennel, Mad Dog.
You're
not correct.
Yeah, the problem I have with it is the name associated with that clip, and the fact that it's the worldwide leader in sports should, in theory, know better, but you know. They decided to put him on First Take, so yeah.
Same company that put Stephen A. Smith on MMA. You figure it out.
And even Stephen A. sitting across from Mad Dog was like, really? That I mean, the gifs are all over social media, and it's just
that should be even more evidence that that comment was purely for the soundbite.
Yeah. I mean,
and programs are now built to where they have more arguments so that more opportunities like that can happen. Why do you think Skip and Shannon are so popular? Could you say that their analysis is top tier all of the time? No.
Nope.
I think you'd be dumb if you said that.
Yep.
Skip Bayless has obvious biases, much like we do, much like the rest of all of the sports analyzers out there. Some people have it less, and I think those people are the ones that are the most respected in the business. And Mad Dog said a mad thing.
Yeah, but I can think of one program that doesn't quite have those flaws, Reese. And can you think of what program I'm thinking of?
I'm thinking of Brews and Baseball.
I'm thinking of Brews and Baseball. Because this is episode 8 of the podcast edition. I threw you for a loop because I didn't tell you I was going to start with that, but I really wanted to talk about that because it's been eating me up all day. It did exactly what it was supposed to do, which it makes me even more frustrated because it's like this.
Why I'm smiling over here. I'm just like, oh, it's okay. Mad Dog just had to bark a little bit.
Put a muzzle on him, my God.
It's like WBC. I think across the board, even Mad Dog would say that the WBC was good. and it is helping grow the game across the world, and that should be the takeaway. And sure, can we talk about the specific at bats? Would I say it's the most iconic parent? No, not even close. I could think of at least three that that would be much better. Because Otani, great two-way player. I would prefer, if we were to compare the moments like Mad Dog was trying to do, I would have to have either the best pitcher in that position, so it could be a starter, somebody like DeGrom versus the best hitter in the league, Mike Trout. Not as much in the this last year, but or it could be a reliever, say like Eric Gagne versus Barry Bonds,
Yeah.
MVP or Cy Young versus MVP. You know,
Yeah.
is it an iconic matchup? Was it exciting to watch? You bet your tookus it was. But it's like the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
It's,
But I mean, the only argument I would put forth for Otani versus Trout is not just the people involved; it's the occasion, and it's the timing of it. Like where we are in baseball, we're on the verge of the game being played in a way that we haven't seen on this level at this stage for the first time ever, with pitch clocks, bigger bases, no shifting, etc. It's a new era for baseball, but this is kind of the last big moment before we have a giant shift toward a game that's going to look fundamentally different, fundamentally faster, as in to the tune of half an hour faster for the foreseeable future. And on top of that, you have the best probably overall position player in the last decade against his teammate, who's the modern day Babe Ruth, throwing pitches that literally, I texted you the snapshot of this, but his slider that struck out Trout actually broke the 80-20 scale. So the 80-20 scale, for those who aren't familiar, is basically the pitch rating. So 80 being the best, 20 being the worst. Otani's slider to strike out Trout yesterday was an 82. Baseball Jimmy, what is going on? Thanks for joining us. No problem. You have a busy life, I know. No problem for missing out on streams. There's a reason that we release all of our VODs on Thursdays, so you can catch all the action and all of the borderline rage quitting that I had yesterday in our game of MLB The Show. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow morning, about 10 a.m. your time, 7 a.m. Pacific time, or thereabouts. So. But I think it's just the occasion of Otani and Trout, just back on that topic. The occasion, the moment, the people. I think the combination of that puts it, for me, in one of the most memorable single showdowns that I remember as at least in my lifetime, our lifetime, and going back even a few decades. Just the moment itself. Now, obviously, there are instances in baseball history, and Reese, you know this way better than I do, but there are instances or matchups that go way further back in time that have a similar sort of kind of effect. But I think this one should be looked at in a similar way, at least, years from now, when we're able to reflect on the greatness of Trout and Otani and all the other players that took the field yesterday for both Team USA and Japan. So that's my little spiel on that.
Yeah, I think this is, sure, was it a horrible take? You bet. But I think even the rest of the world agrees with you. It's just like, no, that's not right. So,
yeah.
And if Stephen A says you're wrong,
that should be a red flag. And I can go into this more, but I think I would rather, and this is just me personally as a sports fan, would rather listen to actual commentary from respected figures in sports media whose specialty isn't being loud or being the incendiary, saying the most to fill up as much space as possible. I think that happens a lot these days. Like there's a lot of fluff, a lot of nothing, just like is
most of sports entertainment and the big networks is gonna be like that from now on.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
No, that's my own personal commentary on it. So,
and that's why you fans are here instead of watching First Take.
Yeah, and that's also why I drink, because folks, we have a new beer tonight.
What a segue.
See, you know exactly when I'm going to segue, and you tee it up perfectly. You're just like, all right, let me go ahead and de-wade this one to LeBron to throw it down. Am I calling you D Wade and me LeBron? Absolutely. Am I actually saying that? No, not in the slightest. But it was a perfect moment. So here's today's beer.
I'm all right with being D Wade.
Yeah,
that's no problem with that at all.
That's a pretty cool one. Today's beer, folks, from our friends, the Dudes, our new friends, the Dudes Brewing Company. We have a coconut porter. Coconuts. They've got a little blurb on it. But before we get into that, it's the Dudes Brewing Company, again, Torrance, California, like with yesterday's, the Dudes Brewing Company peach beer, peach Berliner Weisse. Today's is a porter, a malt beverage with natural flavor added. Got ourselves a nice little 6.2% ABV coconut porter. It's part of their juice box, not jukebox, juice box series.
Could be part of their jukebox.
Could be also part of the jukebox series. You never know. You do never know. And I thank you, Reese, for keeping me honest.
I felt like I kind of swatted you away on your take about Chris Russo, so I thought, let's give him back this one.
you give me one and then you take it straight away, but in reverse order. Yeah. So today's coconut porter,
and then I gib.
You take, you gib. So we've got a little blurb on this can, unlike the last few from Trustworthy, which again, fantastic beers. Be sure to check out Trustworthy's beers if you are of legal drinking age. But first, the coconut porter from the Dudes Brewing Company. Here comes the voice, and I'll have to manipulate this as much as possible in post. Baby, it's cold outside. This dude should help. We've taken a traditional full-bodied porter and added just a touch of coconut for a little tropical kick. It's a tasty winter brew that'll warm you up while reminding you that our sunny SoCal summer is just around the corner. Here's to cold beer and warm days. Cheers, dude.
I had to mute my mic. You had me at baby. I'm crying, dog. I'm actually crying. That was baby.
Baby, it's cold outside.
Baby. Hey, mama, gonna get me a coconut porter.
That's it. I'm naming my team in 23 when we start playing. I'm naming my team the Atlanta Johnny Bravos.
That makes sense. What a name. What a name for a team.
I think we peaked. I don't think we can do any more than this. I think this is.
And not a single drink yet, folks. Not a single drop of alcohol has entered our lips today. We're already killing it. Do you want to do the first and cracking, first and pouring, and get to it? Because we got a lot to talk about in terms of National League, and we had our take about the WBC and Chris Russo already. So
yeah, let's go ahead and crack these bad boys open and get to it. So here come the cracks.
Quiet on set.
I think mine was pretty clean today. I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with that.
Mine was definitely better today, and also when we get the first and pouring going, we have a question, or I guess an opinion, requested from the gallery. But as you can see, we're gonna just get this porter going, and first I'm gonna spill a whole bunch onto my keyboard.
Oh, because
that is par for the course.
That's danger.
I'm gonna get me a wipey, so I just vamp for a little bit. I'll be right back.
All right. Well, while Reese cleans his mess up, that's usually my job. I like how we reversed our roles today and have something completely different. Jimmy, let us know what your opinion requirement / request is from us. We're gonna keep setting up these beers so we can get into tonight's show. But appreciate you joining us. Appreciate you being the support for Brews and Baseball. Yeah, so today on tap we've got, obviously we're going to talk a little bit more about the WBC, probably not a whole lot because we got into it at the very beginning, but basically great tournament, good for baseball. Hate that one opinion got as much press as it did. It unfortunately did its job in this kind of era of, instant gratification, like quick talk show media, as first takey, undisputed, all that stuff. And I hate that was as prevalent as it was, but that's why we have our show, because we kind of have a different opinion that's not as inflammatory. We just give out our takes, and these takes are, they're just honest opinions based on, our combined more than 50 years of sports fandom. Well, at least almost. I'd call it closer to 50 than anything.
I was looking to see. You had tryouts last week. Technically, everybody was on the team for a bit, and they made cuts today. Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right.
I think while Jimmy tees that up,
I've done the old baseball thing.
Yeah,
waiting for the old head to go down.
Okay. But yeah, I was just teeing up the rest of the show. I was the only one told this, but they need more time, whether or not they want to keep you or not. So I'll say this because I was cut from my college golf team. It could be one of those things where, based on your fit with the team and what kind of the personnel looks like, it might just be a capacity type deal. Like if you have, say, too many infielders or outfielders or pitchers or what have you. I don't know for sure. I'm not as familiar with the situation, but I do know it can be hard. And that experience was not easy. So it's not an easy process to go through, but it is a process for sure every single time. I know Reese can probably speak to this better than I can, but it's a process any way you look at it.
Well, as an actor in Hollywood who's pretty much rejected daily,
and there he is.
Look, would it suck to be cut? Yeah, absolutely. But look, you look at some of the greatest athletes of our time. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school varsity team. I'm sure we could find other examples of that. But the best thing that you can do, should you be cut, which we hope doesn't happen, but it's a possibility. It happens to even the best players,
Yeah.
You take this moment and you use it to motivate yourself. I mean, if you still got some years left in college, it's like, okay, team doesn't take me. I am going to dedicate this time then to go train to help better the weak points of my game, maybe put on some muscles so I can hit some ding-dongs. This is just like, if the quote-unquote worst case scenario happens, you get cut, you can always use it as a positive. And you can always use it as a motivational tool. And that way you can say, it's like, all right, you guys can cut me, but you're going to regret that decision. And come next year, I'm going to be better than everyone else on the effing team. And look, you live in New York, Jimmy. Like, that's, yeah. And if they're paying attention to you, that means that you must be doing something right.
Exactly. And what I will also say is that even if the coaches are on the fence about you, and this goes, I think, across the board, even if coaches are on the fence about you, that's more likely than not a good thing, because they don't hate you as a person. Like, if they didn't like you as a person, they would waste no time if they were on the fence. And that's also part of it too.
If they knew you didn't belong, you'd be cut already.
Exactly. So, not to elevate hopes or to be too negative. We're kind of, trying to be just supportive while being as kind of unfamiliar as possible. Reese has a little something on his jaw, so we're gonna power through. But that's my advice, is just to kind of, and Reese hit it right on the head. Motivate yourself. Use that as external motivation. At the level that you're at, I doubt you need any more, but just use it as something to continue to get better, continue to hone your craft. If the timing's not right, it's not right, then, continue to work at it. And then down the road, the timing will be right. If you're putting in the work, I guarantee you that much. So the work will pay off. It's just staying dedicated and staying with it. And if you're, if it's something you love, then by all means, at your age, go all in. Because I wish if I could do it again, go back and be your age, I would go all in on something and not, half in on a bunch of different things. Go all in on one thing. And if it doesn't work out, then you deal with the plan B part of it, at that time. You deal with it when it happens, not, you don't try to predict the future, because it's no one knows what's going to happen in this crazy life, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways, speaking of what's not going to happen, I did not expect this World Baseball Classic to happen, and because it was so great, Reese, I think we have to drink to it. We have to get our first sip in. Let's get this first sip, talk ratings, and then talk WBC a little bit, kind of put a bow on it, and get to the National League. Here we go. First and sipping. Yeah, they're not kidding. They're not kidding. They really do. They really do get their flavors in there. So this is a coconut porter. Porters are more coffee adjacent beers. A lot of times they're made with coffee. This one, of course, a coconut porter. So you expect coconut. You drink it. There's the coconut. It's right there. It's not overwhelming. It's not overpowering. And I do like a good porter. I like a good stout because I'm a big coffee guy. So this ticks all the boxes for a really, really good porter. I mean, it is fantastic. As advertised, really solid beer, just coming out swinging. The dudes are coming out swinging, I gotta say.
Yeah, and I gotta be honest with you, I'm not a huge coconut fan. That made me very nervous going into it. But I'd have to agree. I think this is a good stout, maybe a little bit on the sweeter side than I'd be used to.
Yeah.
As I take a second sip to confirm. Yeah. It's maybe a little bit on the sweeter / lighter side because, you know, we usually had the Big Bears when they were available or something like that. I really enjoy that there's no harsh, bitter coffee taste to it.
Yeah.
Because that can happen sometimes with stouts where, you know.
You get too much coffee, you know? And you don't want that.
Too much coffee, and I wanted a beer, please. Why did you hand me this Starbucks cup?
Yeah, it's like I would like a beer with my coffee, please. You know, it's one of those things. But this doesn't have that problem. This is a nice balance of the two. It is like Reese is saying, a little on the sweeter side. That doesn't mean we can't appreciate it. I think as far as a rating, we could go with coconuts. That's an obvious one. But definitely. I think because we've done peaches for the last two, with a peach, we had a peach saison and a peach, basically Weiss beer. I'm gonna go. So on the can, you see obviously a coconut, but then you see the little kind of umbrella that they put in, you know, fruity drinks and tropical drinks. I'm gonna go at a 63 umbrellas.
62
or. Yeah, 62, sorry. 6.2% ABV. I might have said 63 before. I can't read, apparently. So, out of 62 drink umbrellas.
A, 62 umbrellas.
Ella, A's. Nailed it. Out of 62 umbrellas, I'm going to go 55. I really think this is strong. And, you know, again, I'm a big porter guy. I kind of, you know... My beer taste is kind of all over the map, like my music taste and just general taste in life. It's kind of all over the place. But that said, I like a good porter. I appreciate good porter. This is a really good porter. It's a really, really solid porter. So 55 out of 62 little drink umbrellas. That's solid. It's real solid.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm not as big of a porter guy, so I'll go a little bit lower. I think I'm going to say 51. 51 out of 62. Is it good? Yeah. Would it be the thing that I would pick the first out of the lineup at Dudes? I don't think so. But with that being said, you know, as a porter goes, it is good. And I will continue to drink these two as we talk about WBC and the National League.
Yep. And I think there's no other place to start than kind of where we were going earlier, which is kind of the overall consensus with the WBC. Now, we as in me, vented my frustrations with some of the commentary surrounding the WBC, not just Chris Russo, but a lot of other people who have bigger profiles than they should on social media and just baseball kind of spaces. Look, I think the WBC.
Welcome to entertainment, baby.
Yeah.
Welcome to entertainment.
It is a cesspool, my guy. I gotta say, the WBC did exactly what I thought it was gonna do and what I hoped it would have done, and then some. It really went above and beyond. I think it was a fantastic tournament. Obviously, both Reese and I got our picks right with Japan winning the whole thing. I don't think it was, it's not a huge surprise to anyone when you look at that Japanese roster and then you look at their stats in the Japanese league and you look at obviously what Ohtani's done the last couple of years. Not a real surprise to see that result, but still really welcome to see the tournament that we did, the kind of big surprises and storylines and whatnot. Obviously, Ohtani winning MVP of the whole tournament, no surprise there. Trey Turner, not Trey Young.
Trey Young in his Michael Jordan journey to play baseball at arguably the prime of his career. Like,
Trey Young, the biological father of the New York Knicks.
Well, he wasn't going to get nowhere with the Hawks. So I get it.
No one's getting anywhere with the Hawks. We all know this. This is what we as Hawks fans have accepted.
As soon as John Morant left Memphis, he was just like, I might as well try baseball too. Southern teams are starting to kind of get out of here.
Pretty much, yeah. No, Trey Turner, rather, would have been a good shout. Had the U.S. won, he would have been, he probably would have been MVP. Just all over the place. Fantastic tournament. Venezuela, I think I highlighted them as a really exciting team to watch. The run that Mexico went on, we obviously can't talk about a big tournament or a big stage without talking about Randy Arozarena. He was all over the place. Joey Meneses continues to rake wherever he goes. I think just there was no kind of star that we didn't see coming already. There's no guy who emerged as a, whoa, I didn't really know this guy's game before, but now I know it now. I think everyone was kind of known, at least, in relative to their general kind of awareness. So like the percentage of people who knew about Japanese baseball knew how good Murakami was, for example. And kind of vice versa. So I think it was all around a fantastic tournament. I was a big fan. I'm glad we got to see as much as we did of a lot of different guys. So just could not be more thrilled with what we got from a WBC perspective. And I don't know about you, Reese. I'm just ready for the regular season now. We're 7 days away by the time the people on our podcasting platforms are listening to this. We're in the home stretch.
1 week.
1 week from tomorrow/Thursday.
7 days quickly go.
Yep, we are Eddie Rosario number of days away.
For the fans out there who know Sting and the Police, aka like 50s plus. Yeah, I'm excited about it. What do you say we jump into the teams here?
Yeah, I think there's.
Let me get my notes.
Yeah.
Let me get my notes of purely analytical opinions and not emotions whatsoever.
No emotions whatsoever. I think we should start. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Blown Ohtani Trout at bat? No, that's not it. Sorry.
Whoa now. Easy. I think it's only fitting we start with Philadelphia, with Trey Turner's team, because Trey Turner tore the cover off the ball once the knockout stage began in the WBC. He's absolutely unplayable. His card in MLB The Show 23, his WBC card is going to be absolutely broken. Will I be able to get it by the time you see us play the show next? I don't know. Maybe you will. Maybe you won't. I don't think I'll be able to get it because it's probably going to be one that takes a lot of play time to get. But thankfully I have the time nowadays to do that. So I'm going to be diving right into that as soon as we get our hands on the game, very, very shortly.
A few days for early access for that game.
Yep,
so
starting Friday. Yep, we will have time. We were going to go through it. I will probably be streaming it at some point this weekend. You never know. Actually, I don't know. This weekend might be busy, but next weekend for sure. Well, who knows? But let's start with the NL East, and specifically in Philadelphia. Obviously, Trey Turner, we've talked about before on the show. We talked about it when we talked about the 4 shortstops. Turner, of course, signing an 11-year, $300 million deal with the Philadelphia Phillies that'll run through, I believe, his age 40 season. That already, at least for the first half of that deal, looks like a bargain. I don't know how the deal is structured, so I don't know if it's front-loaded or back-loaded. My guess is it's front-loaded because, man, that dude is... he's been so good.
I think he has full no-trade clause. I think he has all the bells and whistles, so I think that, yeah, at the top, it could be a bargain, but at the back half, could be horrible.
Yeah.
It really depends. Part of me wants to think that this is probably the best deal just because Trey Turner as an athlete, I think will be able to at least maybe not have the speed that he's used to, but at least the athleticism and shortstop. He's not, a big, thick guy. Usually bigger guys, more physical guys can tend to deteriorate, especially if you're a big hitter.
Mm.
But I think out of all of the deals, you know me, I hate mega deals. They're becoming a necessity of baseball. I get it. And also the players, they need to get paid. I get that too. But this is probably the deal where I'm thinking, yeah, I'd be okay with this one. Just because, like I said, his athleticism is going to be there. And judging by how he's been playing the last few years and at the WBC and all that kind of stuff, I'm excited for Philly. I really want them to run it back, at least get to the World Series and lose to Houston like it is God's will. Now that the succubus has been, as Utri would say, the succubus has been contained. But
yeah.
And look, it's just looking in the offseason too, they had some at least decent pickups in terms of pitching. Of course, Craig Kimbrell, Soto. Kimbrell didn't have as great of a year last year with the Dodgers, but who knows, a renaissance could happen. Soto finally free from Detroit.
Yep. Gregory Soto.
And my second note there was it's like, really all they lost was Segura, and that's pretty good. Like, Gene Segura, great player for the Phillies last year, but he's pretty north up there in age, and I wouldn't consider him. He was a great clutch guy last year, but I wouldn't consider him being leading the charge, if not this year, the next couple, while they have this current core.
Yeah, and it's a young core too. I mean, most of their guys are on the other side of 30, like the right side of 30. Harper is one of the elder statesmen, as is Kyle Schwarber. That's good news that you want to hear if you want your team to, be good for the next few years. I think Castellanos is on the older side, but he's not on like a mega long-term deal. Schwarber's on obviously a big deal. Taijuan Walker, I think, is a good addition to the rotation from a depth perspective. He'll be there behind Wheeler and Nola, and I think right in line with kind of Ranger Suarez. So 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. That's a solid opening bit for Philadelphia. They got that guy in the minors, Andrew Painter. He looks like he could be one for the future if he's not quite ready yet. So the Phillies are trending in the right direction. I know a couple of our friends are big Phillies fans, so excited for them, even though they play the Braves 13 times a year. So wish the Phillies all the best when they don't play the Braves. When they don't play the Braves, that is. But we'll get to the Atlanta boys in a little bit. I do want to say Matt Strahm, though, sneaky, kind of good under the radar acquisition for Philadelphia. 2 years, $15 million. Another good bullpen piece, left-handed. That was an issue that I think was highlighted for Philadelphia as one that needs to be better. They addressed that in the offseason. They obviously got their guy, Trey Turner. So, look, Philadelphia has all the tools to run it back, and I think they're fully going to be in the conversation next year. The NL East is going to be one of the hardest, if not the hardest, divisions in baseball. Very top-heavy, that's for sure, with Philadelphia, New York, and, of course, the Braves. But yeah, Phillies are looking like a good team on paper, but play 162 starting next Thursday, so we'll see how they hold it up.
I have them winning the division at least.
Oh, that's a big one. We'll get into those fully next week, so make sure you tune in for those. Subscribe if you haven't already, all that fun stuff. By the way, I forgot to announce this at the beginning of the stream, Reese, but I told you this earlier in the week. Brews and Baseball is now available in podcast form on the major podcasting platforms that I'm sure all of you use out there. So obviously it was already on Spotify, but now Brews and Baseball is officially available on Apple Podcasts and Amazon and or Audible. I think they're one and the same now. So
Audible, yeah.
So available everywhere. Brews and Baseball. Go check it out. Check us out everywhere you find a podcast. You'll have this episode up tomorrow morning. Just exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't want to get to this one now, but it's right there. It's staring me in the face, and they've been in the conversation for so long, pretty much since the ownership change. We're going to talk about the Mets. We're going to talk about the New York Mets. I know, Reese.
Meet the Mets. I don't know why I have a soft spot for the Mets. I think it's because everyone else hates them, and I have to hate what people hate. In terms of baseball, look, with all the spending that the Mets have done, it's up to them now. Because my second note on here is if they don't win soon, we shall continue to laugh in their eternal suffering. And because I think we've learned with the Rangers, among other club iterations in the past, spending, while good, doesn't mean that the team will come together, that all of these pieces will perform. I think the big one that I'm a little about is just my first note is like, let's spend all of the money, which Mr. Cohen is doing.
Yep.
But I was kind of looking at it. You essentially got Verlander for DeGrom. Now, DeGrom, very injury prone, understand that. But Verlander is 106 years old. He has been blessed with a renaissance in his later years in Houston, kind of reawakened his Cy Young era majesty, if you will. I was thinking about it for a while today, and I'm not sure. Obviously, it was a good pickup. You were going to lose DeGrom. You might as well get Verlander, but will it replace DeGrom? Time will tell, but I'm not sure. He's in New York, so luckily the pressure cooker there, he'll have all of the sticky stuff necessary to help him along. New York media will gladly look the other way now that he's on their team. So we'll have to see. And we'll have to see how DeGrom performs at the Rangers. But, like, my initial thought about this is not a great swap, but Mets want to win a World Series right now. They got to do what they got to do, especially if you're losing a piece like DeGrom.
Yeah, and Steve Cohen's words were pretty strong when he took over as the owner, when he bought the Mets. He wanted to deliver a World Series to Flushing, to Queens, within 5 years. That is a long time to turn around a franchise that hasn't had a consistent direction for the better part of... I mean, even when they went to the World Series, they didn't really have a consistent direction. They were just blessed with timing and, you know, the three-headed monster of Syndergaard, DeGrom, and Matt Harvey all coming up at the same time and all kind of turning into the pitchers they are or they were at their primes at the same time. And then they ran into the buzzsaw known as the Kansas City Royals in 2015. So that's a lofty promise to get kind of an organizational direction and then back it up and then compete with the 2021 World Champions, the 2022 National League champions in Philadelphia. It's a lot to promise, but he has backed it up with the money. And I wish more owners were like Steve Cohen in that sense, as far as the, you know, hey, let's spend money and let's not be afraid to, you know, sacrifice a little bit of long-term stability from a financial perspective and kind of go after it now, because, you know, winning championships is profitable in the long term, because then you create fandom creates attention creates merchandise sales and ticket sales, et cetera. So these things all kind of work together, but you know, as I get it, there's a business component to it, and good business acumen isn't let's spend $43 million a year for the next 2 years on a pitcher who just turned 40 in Justin Verlander and a guy who turns 30. I think he turns 39 later this year in Max Scherzer. So there's a bit of an age component. Yes.
And also tying it back into the WBC, you just re-signed Edwin Diaz, who you will not have this year. And also Brandon Nimmo's out with an injury, won't be out as long as Diaz will.
Yep.
But look, as supportive as the Mets organization was to Edwin Diaz, one of the stupidest things he could have done. Sure, he did it after he got the big old paycheck, but can't injure yourself on a celebration. Don't be Kendrys Morales. Do not be Kendrys Morales.
Yeah, I mean, and this opens up a bigger thing, which is why a lot of Mets Twitter in general is just really just furious with the WBC. It's one of those things where it's such a fluke accident. It could have happened to anyone in any other scenario, or any other injury could have happened in spring training too. You just never know. It's one of the, you don't obviously wish it on anyone, and you don't want to see it happen, because, you know, if you are the best of the best, you want to see the other team at full strength when you kind of go after them. You know, I don't want to see the Braves play the Mets when the Mets are at like 75% health. I want to see 100% Braves, 100% Mets go at it late in the season with a chance to kind of wrestle the division away from one another. Obviously want the Braves to win, but you know, at that cost, it's not good for baseball to have that kind of thing. At the same time, from Diaz's perspective, and Lindor was saying this too, his teammate, for both Puerto Rico and for the Mets, he's like, I still would have wanted him to do that, because there's a certain pride and an element of kind of, there's just an unquantifiable element that comes with playing for your country and playing for your, I mean, Puerto Rico's a weird one because it's technically a U.S. territory, so technically part of the U.S., but also not part of the U.S. It's a weird one, but still, playing for your island, playing for your culture, your people, that's something you can't really put a number on. There's a level of just prestige that comes with that, certainly internationally, not necessarily with the U.S., but internationally. You ask players what it means to them, what they'd rather win, a World Series or a WBC. And 6 Dominican players were asked in this one clip, and 5 out of the 6 said they'd rather win a WBC. And Robinson Cano was saying it's basically not identical, but it's on the same level. And that, I think, is the point that gets lost a lot of the time. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about that, but you know, it's an unfortunate injury for Diaz, and the Mets are going to obviously make a move to compensate for that. I can guarantee you that much, that I'm sure Billy Epler's on the phone with someone else right now trying to land a deal for, you know, Bednar or Daniel Bard or, you know, what have you.
I was going to say, he's probably talking to Pittsburgh, cozying up over there. I'd pick Bednar out, even though he didn't have necessarily the greatest WBC. But yeah, you can have all the pride that you want in winning something for your country or your state or what have you. Can't get injured doing it, though.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not like, you know, what do you if you're playing in that sort of stage, do you not celebrate? Like, and do you like
you celebrate and you don't get hurt doing it?
But I know, but the thing is, it's such a fluke injury that's not something you can like actively try to prevent when you're in the moment of like, oh my God, I'm sending my country to the knockout stage of the WBC. Like, that's huge, you know, against a team like the Dominican Republic, a team that a lot of people circle as like their tournament favorites, along with, you know, we talked about this on a couple episodes. So it's just, you know, it's one of those kind of hot button topics these days. I don't fault Diaz for celebrating. It's something you don't want to have happen, obviously. I mean, that no one in the right mind is saying, I want to see him. Yeah. But it's just a really it's a woe is me. that is a hill you have decided to die on this episode for sure.
Yeah, you can't do that.
I want to highlight though. Yeah.
And Baseball Jimmy hit 500 subs. Congratulations, Mr. Baseball Jimothy.
Congratulations, Jimmy. Appreciate you for continuing to look an eye out for us little people. Those who don't have 500 subs yet.
Us small children.
Small children, exactly. Kodai Senga is one that is going to make me a little nervous from a Braves perspective, because the dude looks absolutely filthy, and he wasn't even on the WBC team. I think people highlighted him as like someone to watch, as like, yo, if Japan makes a run, like, he's going to pitch. And he didn't end up pitching for them, which to me is a shame, because, I mean, his stuff is electric. And, you know, $15 million a year for 5 years for Senga it sounds like a bargain, honestly, based on what I've seen. I mean, obviously it's spring training, but this stuff looks electric. It looks like it plays. So, you know, my only advice to Senga is you don't want to leave one of those newfangled fastballs middle to Matt Olson in the heat of a pennant race in late August and early September. I guarantee you don't really want to do that. But you know, we'll talk about the Braves in a little bit. Senga's won Quintana 2 years, $26 million. Quintana's going to start the year on the IL. I can't remember exactly what the injury is, but I don't think he's going to be pitching for them for a little bit. I can't remember what it was specifically. We talked about Nimmo. Ottavino returning on a 2-year deal. Jeff McNeil re-signed for $52 million over 4 years. He is a pest, no two ways about it, and I don't like him. but he worked a hell.
Squirrely boy, isn't he?
He worked a hell of an at bat against the best pitcher or one of the best pitchers in the game. So my respect for that, but I still don't like him. He's still a squirrely man.
Last year, you got to pay the man in his contract.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Dykstra made that into an art form.
You got to pay the man.
But it's just, I'm getting a lot of Steinbrenner vibes from the Mets right now. And I think if they go back-to-back years without winning the World Series or at least making a deep run, I think we'll see that the spending spree doesn't work.
Yeah, and they also added a really sneaky under-the-radar catcher in Omar Narvaez from Milwaukee. I don't know if he's a free agent or if it was a trade. I think it was a trade. But they got Omar Narvaez, who's a really sneaky good catcher. I think he's a good pickup. Former Mariner Omar Narvaez. A welcome pickup for sure. We talked about the Mariners last week, but just I think they've made a lot of sneaky good moves. Obviously the clip of our sweet prince Daniel Vogelbach grounding out and firing off an expletive while he was mic'd up was nothing more than just chef's kiss. Just perfect. No notes.
There are definitely 3 owners in the National League that could learn something from the Cohens, and we'll get to those definitely.
Yeah.
Later in the program.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of notes on the Marlins and the Nats. For the Nats, again, I think Joey Meneses has been so good to watch just from a neutral baseball perspective, considering the journey he went on to get to the major leagues. Kind of went around all over the place, didn't get his opportunity until he was 30 years old or 29, and has not stopped really hitting since then. So, you as a baseball fan, I love it. Just save it for the games when they don't play the Braves. That would be much appreciated.
Well, and in terms of something, or at least owners that could learn from the Cohens, Washington for sure. There have been, I think there was too much drama off the field in terms of the owners trying to sell. Will they, won't they? Obviously, they're, selling all of their hot goods in a fire sale last year. Juan Soto's gone. Josh Bell is gone. And the returns that they got was Luke Voigt, which I'm like, yeah, sure, Washington, whatever you want to do, I guess. So either they're going to sell the team soon, but yeah, I don't have a lot of things on the Nats. They are one of the teams that I've mentioned that could learn something from Cohen, and that they need to just build a team and quit messing around here. Meneses, yeah, great player, but he's still 30. And who knows, he could have a Sean Figgins situation where he has a great year last year and then either gets traded or comes back the next year and,
Yeah.
I have a little bit more on the Marlins, though.
Okay, well, let's switch gears to the Marlins then. Let's talk about Flo Rida. Or, sorry, Miami, formerly Flo Rida.
Arias was the best pickup out of that. They also got Gene Segura that they're going to throw at third base. Not enough. And I get it that they're probably financially strapped a little bit. It seems that they don't have a particular direction where they're going. Obviously, they let go of Donnie Baseball. And also another thing, why are so many teams absolutely freaking obsessed with having their best player transition to a new position? Ketel Marte, Fernando Tatis. You're going to have Gene Segura at third base now. It's a Jazz Chisholm in center field. Like,
yep.
Hello?
And
Hello? Are you home, McFly? Like, Ketel Marte, it didn't work. Fernando, it certainly didn't work in terms of his defensive war. I mean, look, God, the negative number is never good. And especially when it's close to a negative double-digit number.
Yeah. We've talked about Jazz before. Oh, that's okay. So it was because of Arias. So Arias is going to play second, which would basically force Jazz to play. I mean, I don't know why Jazz couldn't play shortstop though. That's my thing.
Thank you.
But I guess they have. They must have someone else.
No, they know what they're doing down there in Miami. So
well, I mean, the thing is, like, Jazz he has the profile of a generational talent. He's got the skills and he's got the kind of personality to be a superstar in the game, kind of a, someone in the mold of not skill wise, but as far as
definitely the
persona.
swag of baseball
Yeah,
right now.
he's got that, he has that it factor, that kind of marketability that you really want to see more of, more consistently in the game. I mean, we've seen some personality from Trout for the first time, and you want to see that more frequently, and Jazz has it, but and I love what he said about what he would do, about his his kind of confidence in his own abilities. He said, like, yeah, I'll go out and play center field, and I'm going to play Gold Glove center field. And I was like, yeah, go ahead, go, like, show us. Exactly. And for a team that doesn't really have I say this with the most respect, but you're in the same division as the 2021 World Champs, 2022 pennant winners, and a team that has unlimited resources in the New York Mets. You have to compete with those three teams. That's almost 40 games right there against those teams. So if you have an even record against them, then you might have a rest of the shot against the rest of the league. But then you have to consider how good the rest of the Central is. You have to consider how good the Dodgers are in the West, and even the Padres. There's so many other good teams in the National League where they can't really be thinking, compete for a division title, compete for a wild card. It's kind of like, no, build up the talent in the organization to be able to compete with those teams, and hope that things break your way in a couple of years. But it just doesn't seem like that's long term reliable, because as good as versatility is for Jazz to play another position, I don't know if center field is that position, especially at his age. I mean, he's what, 23? You don't want to be. Yeah, it just seems like a mind-boggling decision to not have him play, kind of like, if he's your franchise, he's the face of your franchise, why not have him play short?
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that, and that was my final note on it. It's like, why couldn't it be shortstop? And if they have Arias at second, because let's face it, shortstop and second base in terms of the infield have, I was going to say, it's not a close relationship, you know what I mean? But a lot operates through them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And especially with the shifts now, that they have to be in much more communication than they would before, because they're on opposite sides, and when they have to turn the double plays and all that kind of stuff. What a better pairing would be to pair your newest, hottest acquisition, the highest paid guy on your team, matched up with the face of the franchise. It's not like the Rangers where it's the left side, strong side. You just have your 4 and 6 be your main guys, rather than your 4 and your 8. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Or what's center field? I think it's 8, isn't it?
Yeah, center field is 8.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. I think that there, especially if you want to form a core, I think there has to be, look, because I'm a baseball expert, obviously. I would just prefer to have a combination like that, to where you're closely working with the two main pieces of your team, and then try to build around it, because you could pick up other acquisitions that would be great out in the outfield, and have them form their own identity, as it were. I'm so scared for Chisholm, just because it's just.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just found out.
Rarely have we seen a transition like this work in the modern time.
Yeah.
And I don't mean modern like since like 1950. I'm talking like within the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
Very seldom have I seen a generational talent transition from one position to the other. I mean, the only one that I can really think of off the top of my head is maybe A-Rod, but then sure, at third base he was good, but I don't think he was known for his defense by the time he went to third. He just couldn't take Jeter's spot, which was the right choice by the Yankee management. And I don't think he would have taken going to second very well, just because ego and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think I just found out why he's going to be playing center field. It was actually his idea, because the way the Marlins roster was after all the trades that they made, obviously trading away Miguel Rojas and trading for Luis Arias, the way they were kind of situated, they had to kind of put together a plan for everything. And so Chisholm actually, he went to Skip Schumacher and he's like, look, if you can't find a center fielder, I'll play center. And to me, that's a good sign for
I respect that.
a player like that, because, you know, not only does it speak to his characters, like he's going to do whatever the team needs, and he has the capacity to do it. And from what it sounds like from just skimming this article, he just wants to play baseball. And that's huge, just to be able to play the game with that like childlike love for the game, which I think gets lost more often than we'd care to admit. Just to play the game and to have fun with it. That to me is a really good sign. So maybe that's a good thing for the Marlins as far as morale. I mean, obviously Skip Schumacher's first year in charge as manager, that should be a big point for just to note for the season. I don't know. I obviously don't know what kind of impact he's going to have, but if he brings that kind of, you know, his Cardinals background to the job, then they could be good. But you never know with young first year managers. It's a tough one to guess.
Also, Miami just needs more bats. I think that just needs to happen. And also, I mean, I think they have. Obviously, they have some good pitchers on the deck, and even more in the pipeline. I think that's what they're most known for, is probably their pitching prospects. And
yeah, right now anyway. Yep.
But bats are really important. And then in terms of, you know, getting another pitcher like Cueto.
Yeah, they need Soler to hit like he did in Atlanta in the second half of 21. They need Avi Garcia to hit. They need obviously Jazz to be good post injury. They need Arise is going to hit. They need Wendell to hit. They need a lot of their guys to really come up and start producing, you know, offensively. They traded JJ Bleday for AJ Puck, I believe it was. Puck is the left-handed pitcher formerly of Oakland. So, you know, there's a lot of kind of prereqs for the Marlins to be good, and a lot of them just happen to be on the offensive side of the ball. So we'll see if they're able to make that happen. But pitching is not gonna be a problem for them. I mean, they have a rotation that's ready to go for another couple years. Obviously, 22. They have Sandy Alcantara, the Cy Young Award winner. They've got Edward Cabrera. They've got the nasty changeup of Edward Cabrera right behind him. They've got Jesus Luzardo with electric stuff that plays when he locates it. They've got pieces. It's just putting it all together. And you know, could they be closer than most people think? I think potentially, but it's a lot of contingencies, a lot of if. But there is one team that doesn't have a lot of ifs to it. Kind of a lot of pieces that are set for, you know, quite a long while. Some might say below their market value. These people might be considered the haters. And that team, you would say it. I would say it. Braves fans would say it. That would be the Atlanta Braves.
The Arizona Oh,
oh my God. I don't know how they're able to do it, but the fact that they locked up Harris, Strider, Riley, Olson, Murphy, pretty much every player you can think of got locked down to a long-term deal that's probably under, from an AAV perspective, under market value for the next, 6-7 years. And it's the funniest thing to see how people respond to it, because then they're going to be like, hey, what can we do for Ohtani? Best we can offer is 1 year, $25 million. And Ohtani's going to probably command a contract with a number that starts with a 5. But no, the Braves did most of their kind of long-term kind of off-season work in season last year, signing Riley, Olson, obviously before the season started, Riley, Strider, Harris, etc., to longer-term deals. It, however, does not look like Max Fried is going to be with the team after this year. So if they're kind of out of it by the deadline, I wouldn't be surprised if he was moved. I think he's just going to command a number that's too high for Alex Anthopoulos and for Liberty Media, who I wish, they're a big corporation, so they're operated like one, and so they kind of own baseball teams like one, which is not ideal because Steve Cohen does not do that. Steve Cohen operates like a reckless billionaire, which is probably what he is in terms of spending money, but he has so much money, it's not even funny.
Well, say what you want about big companies running this. I'd say Liberty Media is probably the winners out of anybody in terms of locking up great talents for thrifty contracts. Literally, they went out there saying, we're going to pop some tags. We've got $20 in our pocket. Thrift shop, Macklemore, because, Seattle.
Hey, Macklemore, can we go thrift shopping?
What? Yeah, my notes on this. Yeah, just let Owen take this one. Fair. I am so glad that you guys picked up Sean Murphy. I wanted him to be free of the green hell that is Oakland. I'm so glad that he will. And also, I think he's going to be a great contributor to Atlanta. And I would say that he's one of the big pieces, along with, I almost said Adam Duvall. That's not correct. Matt Olson. I want them to make a deep run. Obviously, other than the Mariners and the Dodgers, I'd want them to win the World Series if those previous two teams are not involved in it. My last note for the Braves is just please don't mess this up. You guys got pretty much all the pieces, maybe a little bit more pitching, but even then, you got Strider, you've already got great pieces going for you. You might not be as stacked as, say, somebody like Philly or Mets, the ones that really drove out the dollars. But
yeah, no, the Braves,
if they need to make a signing, stay in the midseason, based off of the thrifty contracts, they are in more of a position to do it than Philly or perhaps Steve Cohen if he didn't take his meds that day. And I'm not saying that he's a bad person. I was more in saying that, like, if he is out of his mind and like pays $100 million for like Clayton Kershaw or something like that,
Yeah, for like half a season of Clayton Kershaw. No, so my thing with the Braves this year is, at least with the way that 22 ended, it just happened to be kind of a perfect storm where everything that kind of could derail the Braves season went wrong at the exact time it couldn't. Spencer Strider went down with an oblique injury in late September. He couldn't pitch in the series in October against the Mets, where the Mets came to Atlanta needing to win, I think, 2 games or 1. If they won 2 of those 3 games, then they would have basically clinched the division. The Braves swept the Mets. Elton John trolled them at his concert that night, and it was just a fantastic weekend. But that was kind of when the Braves season peaked. Not a great look for your season to peak that early in October. You want your season to peak, in the end of October, not the beginning of October. So that's kind of where it all unraveled.
I could say even in November.
Yeah, some might say early November. Usually, November 2nd, 2021 is when my dreams came true, and the Braves won the World Series in 21, and we were actually recording it, not recording, but we were presenting Brews and Baseball to all of you on the internet in its previous iteration when the Braves last won that World Series. But back on the topic, everything that went wrong for the Braves at the exact wrong moment kind of did. Yes, they won that series against the Mets, but at the cost of Max Fried losing 15 pounds due to a stomach bug. Spencer Strider went down with an oblique injury. All the guys were just exhausted from a mentally draining series against a really, really good Mets team. And it kind of all came together against the Braves when they really needed to continue playing well. I mean, the Mets pushed them all the way to game 161, which, is a really difficult thing to do, because that Braves team from June 1st on, after they won 14 in a row, they were playing like, I can't remember exactly what the number is, but they won 101 games after starting the first couple months of the season just garbage. I mean, you and I went to see them at Dodger Stadium in April of 22, and they looked hopeless. I mean, nobody on the team was hitting. Dansby couldn't hit anything. Austin Riley just forgot to bring his bat, apparently. Matt Olson was handsome,
a good day for me,
but just not ideal. So it's just a really, really difficult stretch to start the season. And they end up winning 101 games and winning the division for the 5th straight year. So they more than have the pieces, and they're more than capable of playing good baseball. The only question marks for the Braves coming into the year, coming into this 2023 season, were obviously what are they going to do at shortstop without Dansby. They have solved that question. They have answered that question with Orlando Arcia, which I think is a really good move, because the only problem with having a Braden Shoemake or a Vaughn Grissom start the year at shortstop is that all of the focus in the world around baseball, around the shortstop position on the Braves, is those two. And that is not what you want for a team that's trying to prepare these guys for long, successful careers. Because we know they have the talent, we know they have the ability, we know they can do it in big situations, but to start the year on that note, to me, feels like a bit of a stretch. So when the news broke that the Braves were going to option both Shoemake and Grissom to AAA to start the year, I was like, actually, I really like this move because it takes them out of the spotlight for at least the first couple weeks of the year. If Arcia's performing, let him keep the job. Let Grissom and Shoemake really earn it at AAA. Make them perform to levels that are so high that Alex Anthopoulos can't sit in his office and with a clear mind say, I can keep these guys at AAA. He can't just sit in his office and be like, no, that's fine, we'll keep it AAA. That's how they have to get from AAA to the bigs. And mind you, Vaughn Grissom skipped AAA entirely. He went from AA to the pros, just like Michael Harris. So, it's one of those really strange things where all baseball circles, everyone who was kind of thinking like, oh, what are the Braves going to do? They're going to sign like a Trey Turner, or are they going to go after someone via the trade? It's like, no, they have an in-house option. Is the in-house option ready? No, not quite. They had a third in-house option who's played shortstop at the big league level. Orlando's more than capable of playing shortstop at the big league level. He's more than serviceable. He can hit too. People forget that he's a very solid offensive player. He was like a 11th or 12th man off the bench. The Braves will be fine all around. They won't be as good defensively without Dansby. Obviously, Dansby's going to play Gold Glove shortstop for Chicago. He just may forget to hit, but he's going to play Gold Glove shortstop. That we're not concerned about. Yeah. So
yeah, and like, look, to keep those guys down there, you don't want to serve a steak when it's still frozen in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to be smart about that. And I think they have enough options, at least on the offensive front, to where they are allowed to do that.
Exactly. And it's like a lot of Braves Twitter's like, oh, like, what are they doing? Like, are we going to trade for someone? It's like, maybe Tim Anderson's going to be available. It's like, no. Ron Washington thinks they can do this. He thinks both of them have the ability. Just the timing isn't right. And that's fine. That happens in baseball all the time.
Wash is the manager now?
Well, I mean, Wash is like the kind of glorified infield coach. He works with the infielders mostly. So he's the guy working with
coach. He's sending people home.
Wash. Yeah. Exactly. So third base coach, infield coach, he knows quality when he sees it. I mean, he was a manager of two very, very good Texas Rangers teams in the early 2010s. So he knows what he's doing. I have full faith in Anthopoulos and Wash and Snitker and all of the coaches with this decision. Now, do I think the Braves are going to win the division? No. I think this is the year that one of Philadelphia or New York wins the division for the first time in 5 years. But do I think they're still well within shout of a playoff spot? Absolutely. They're too good not to be. And if they start the season,
they have at least 90 wins for sure.
Yeah, and if they start the season slow again, I'm not surprised. They've kind of made a habit of that, as bad as it is to have that habit. They made a habit of that the last couple of years. I'm not as concerned. I'm just excited to watch the Braves again. New play-by-play guy. For the first time in like 40-something years, a carry will not be involved with a Braves broadcast. It's actually wild. Obviously, Skip Carey is going over to St. Louis to take that newly vacated job with the Cardinals. And obviously the late great Chip Carey, the late great Skip Carey passed away when I was in like middle school, and that was something, because I just remember hearing his very distinguishable voice just call Braves games on the radio and on TV occasionally. But anyways, there will not be a Carey working a Braves broadcast in Atlanta for the first time in decades. That'll be a weird thing, but the new guy grew up a Braves fan, Brandon Gaudin. He grew up a Braves fan. I'm excited for that, to have like a born and bred Braves fan be on the play-by-play. So exciting season for Braves fans, but we'll see what happens when opening day kicks off next Thursday, the 30th. We're almost there.
I do want to say before we move on, and I'll take this next little section because I have an idea of how I can loop these teams together. We kind of briefly talked about it, but I just want to offer up the take so you can clip it and then pull me apart once I'm inevitably wrong. But here's what I think is going to happen. I think Mets are going to win 95 games. I think Atlanta's going to win something like 97. And then Phillies are going to be up more towards 101, 102. I think that's how the division is going to go. It's going to be close, but I think Philly's going to take it. I think the Mets and the Braves are interchangeable, despite the Mets really going to work. I get too many Steinbrenner vibes. And I don't mean the current Steinbrenner. I mean King George III. And so we'll have to see. But I wanted to briefly touch on this because I didn't want to spend too much time on these particular teams. We mentioned earlier that I believe that there are about 4 teams in the National League that really their main issues come down to their ownership. We briefly touched on Washington before and the whole drama about whether they'll sell or not, and frankly, just getting rid of their talent. The next one I can think of is Pittsburgh. There's obviously a big old organizational problem happening over there. If you're already pissing off the G-Man and Brian Reynolds, future New York Yankee Brian Reynolds at that. And the only thing that they really did to fix it was kind of bring in old, past his prime Kutch for nostalgia for his 1-year thing. I just feel really bad for the fans of Pittsburgh right now because they definitely have one of the best ballparks in the business, and they kind of have a legacy of failure. Boy, that's extended until the 70s. I don't think they've won since then. They've been to the postseason in the 90s. I remember the 91 with the Braves when Sid Bream sent them home, which was really nice. And then Barry Bonds was like, I'm going to send myself home to San Francisco. I'm out of here. The next team off of the top of that, I would say, is Colorado. That is just a hell I wish upon no baseball fan, because literally my first note is, please God, make it stop. And then my second one, this is kind of more reactionary, kind of mad dog cynicism. It's like, oh, how did Chris Bryant work out? Yeah, that's going to help revigorate your team. Obviously, that wasn't his fault. He had an injury for most of it, kind of like a Trevor Story situation. So I'm not blaming Chris at all for that. I'm morely poking holes in acquiring a single piece and believing that just things are going to change. And usually they never do. Colorado's going to be a little bit screwed coming up too, because I can't remember if it's 24 or 25. Blackman is gone next year. I'm calling it right now. They're going to get rid of him somehow, or at least free him from the Colorado space. Crone will probably be gone too. And he's probably their best bat on the team this year. Probably their face of the franchise in that regard. And then the last one that I think that we can loop under this is Mount Everett's Cincinnati Reds. I think this is the one where the owner is the most outspoken. The quote when fans basically are complaining, saying, hey, we need to have a better product on the field. And the owner's like, oh, well, where are you going to go? Are you serious, dog? Are you serious? Like that you can't, just from a business perspective, you can't do that. I don't know what it is with Cincinnati. You've heard me mention Marge Schott several times in our lives, if not on this program. For those of you who don't know who she is, she was an owner. Oh boy, just lots. I think if Donald Trump were an owner, I think that'd be it. And she was somehow worse. I don't know how that's possible, but it was somehow worse. And it seems to be a continuation of that. Obviously, you also have other organizational problems. We always joke about Castellanos' home run during Tom Brenneman's faux pas, if you will. And then it's just other stuff with the Reds. They didn't really make any good pickups. Yeah, sure, Will Myers, and you have Justin Dunn coming up the pipeline. But all 4 of those teams really just have their main issues are the owners, I think, and the organizations that are in dire need of a cleaning house or some sort of reorganization in order to have people in there that genuinely care about the team, not about the bottom line, and that want to put a good product in so the fans will go to the ballpark or at least support the teams. And I'm sorry for taking the majority of these, but I just want,
no,
it only seems like the National League where this happens.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate, and because a lot of those teams were in the Central.
Well, it's funny because you can make the same argument with Cleveland, because before they traded Lindor, a lot of the conversation was, when are they going to trade Lindor? I mean, the trade chatter basically started the minute they lost the World Series to the Cubs, because I think, what is it, the Dolan family? I think they were very kind of, shall we say, conservative with their spending or their will to spend, and so they didn't want to spend on Lindor, who's a generational talent, obviously, and the Mets obviously thought of him that way.
Pinched him,
and so they went and got him. And so, but you're right. It's a terrible thing for baseball fans when you want to be a fan of your team and your team decides to just not spend money because it doesn't help the bottom line. Well, I hate to break it to billionaire owners, but you're billionaires. You can afford this, right? And there was a study out there that looked at the bottom lines of basically every major league club. I can't remember who. I think it might have been something athletic related, but it was basically looking at every team's ability to pay players, and every team, even the Rays and the A's, have the capacity to pay their players more than what they are now. But the way they decide to run their teams comes from ownership, and ownership is obviously wanting to maximize their own kind of in-pocket cash and assets, and less so maximize their return on those investments years from now. So it's a tricky thing as a baseball fan, because you have so many teams that should be spending more and just aren't. And we as fans want to see good baseball, and good baseball has a price to it in today's day and age, as does everything else with any quality. It has a good price to it. So
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we could spend a whole entire episode, if not a whole series, on the finances and the money side of baseball. Not specifically Moneyball, but just the money in the game. So it's an ongoing conversation. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, it's just my thought, at least to round this bit of it out, is not only in this day and age do the owners and the teams have to spend, but we as fans have to now spend a lot more. Baseball is no longer a game to where you can take your family for under $100. In some places, you can't even park near the stadium for less than $100. I know that I'm kind of branching into football a little bit. In Los Angeles, it's a little bit different, that sort of thing. But I mean, you gotta spend a little bit of money, because the fans are. The fans are spending way more than they should. And I'm really concerned about the trend in baseball to cater towards a corporate experience, because that's where the big dollars are going to come from. And they're going to alienate the fans like us, who don't have all the money lying around, or even the fans from lower income regions or what have you, who want to go to the game, who love the game, but they can't go because the tickets are so egregious. And of course, we'll go the ticket vendors and all that kind of stuff, nickel and dime you for everything. It's really unfortunate. That's why I loop them all into one place. As a Mariners fan, I am very aware of just how terrible, if your organization doesn't really care, how it can affect your fan base.
Yeah.
There were times when the park was empty. You see it in Oakland. I'm sure you're going to see it in Anaheim now because of the Moreno situation. I think the Guardians have gotten a little bit better since Lindor. A little bit better.
Yeah. They've managed to put together good product in spite of that. But no, your point's well taken for sure. I think
if you have any thoughts about Pittsburgh or Cincinnati or Washington, feel free to get them out there. But I just didn't want to spend too much time on them, just because we all know that it's not any of the players' fault. It's really...
No, it's mostly on the side of ownership in the front offices and spending money. And like you're saying, keeping the fan experience kind of more front of mind. But again, it's a tricky one, because their concern is profitability as owners. It's treated like a business, because in a lot of ways it is. So you have to run it that way. And that's the part that I've always hated. And I know you and I have had this conversation a lot just in general about the kind of the ones in, you know, the dollars and cents of it all. We don't need to spend too much time talking about that because we can, again, we could spend years talking about that. But
And at the same token, like if you make it as hard as possible for your clients to do business with you, you're gonna lose them. And when you lose your clients, you lose your team, you lose your business.
yeah,
It's almost. I get that they can figure out how to manipulate it financially to where they don't. They alienate maybe about 90% of the fans, but can still turn a profit somehow. But I just want that stuff to change, and I'm ready to move on before I say anything else that the internet will take as a Mad Dog comment.
yeah. Well,
I'm gonna crack the second one open too.
Yeah,
so.
I'll get the second one ready as well. But I'll spin it the other direction too, because hold on. There we go. I'll spin it the other direction because I remember this. I don't remember if we were friends at that point, but when the Braves announced they were moving to Cobb County from downtown, let me get my beer. It's cracked open on this end.
Didn't spill that time, so this is a huge clutch moment for me.
Love to see it. Yeah, so when the Braves moved to Truist Park, now formerly SunTrust, up in Cobb County, which is kind of closer to where I grew up than downtown Atlanta. When they announced that move, I was kind of on the fence about it because, you know, obviously they wouldn't be playing in the city of Atlanta. They'd be playing in you know, a suburb. But at the same time, they ran the analysis and they found that most season ticket holders lived kind of out near where I did. And so it made sense to cater to Braves fans who were going to show up to games on a nightly basis. And the Braves went from having one of the worst attendances in baseball, even when they were kind of decent in the kind of early 2000s, to having one of the best. I mean, they only trailed the Dodgers last year, I think, in total attendance, which is wild to me because Dodger Stadium is a full, like, 14,000 seats more than Truist. And yet the Braves filled that stadium up every single night. I mean, it helps when you're defending world champions and in 21 you had beat the Dodgers, but it's such a night and day difference that, you know, from teams that really care about their fan experience and how to maximize the kind of game day experience and teams that don't really care about that. And the Braves have done what I think is a fantastic job of maximizing the popularity of what is already a really popular team all throughout the South. So as a Braves fan, it's good to see, and I wish more teams had that same kind of approach to it. But I also realize that, you know, other places geographically might be different, and you can't, you know, say that this is the model for everyone else when it is maybe more of an exception, more so than anything.
And I swear this is the last comment, but I do want to bring this up because Walter O'Malley used to be the owner of the Brooklyn/Los Angeles Dodgers. He was probably the main reason why they moved. He did it under the guise that they were not profitable in Brooklyn anymore. But the real reason behind it was he was not as excited about the rising number of black and other race fans coming to the ballpark. At the point where Brooklyn was going to move to Los Angeles, Brooklyn had become more of a multi-ethnic community. I think before it was more kind of, you know, Italian, and of course in different sides they would have different people and stuff like that. But just based off of how gentrification worked in the city, it became more people of color as opposed to a mix of white and people of color. And I think that also has a part of it. I wouldn't be surprised if that had maybe not a lot to do with the situation in Atlanta, but I'm sure that that was probably an influence.
Very much so, yeah.
Downtown LA compared to Cobb County, you know, I'm no expert at geography down there, but I think if I put the pieces together, you know, and that's an unfortunate part that I think we are starting to figure out and hopefully rectify in baseball. Keep the stadiums in the cities because that's, especially like in Seattle, you have a stadium district. There are ways that you can develop it in order to create a safe environment and all that kind of stuff to where everybody can go and not just the higher socioeconomic or the well-fortunate, whatever you want to call them. But we're getting off on a tangent. Let's talk about another team before I start pounding the fist and talk about race theory as a white man.
Yeah. Oh, we don't want to go down that rabbit hole, Reese. And,
no,
and
I don't even.
Because I know where you stand on that, and we're on the same side. We're on the same page. It's gonna get misconstrued somehow, right? You and I are both on this, and I think I've talked about this. Like I tend to be, I think, pretty progressive in most ways, but it's, we'll leave that for people who are more well equipped, like our friends from college, who are more well equipped to talk about race than we are.
People that can speak English good.
Yeah.
And that have researched this a while and didn't just wander off of the street with a couple of beers in them,
Speaking of beers, time for a second sipping.
Oh, sorry. I took a premature one.
No, you're fine. We're doing it.
Yeah, still very good.
Still very good.
Which team do you want to talk about next?
I was going to say, let's just keep going with kind of historic franchises. Let's talk Cubs. We talked about the Dodgers, talked about the formerly Brooklyn Dodgers. Let's talk about the Cubs.
Very, very excited about the Cubbies.
I have a lot of questions about the Cubs. I realized yesterday, so I told this to you when we were watching the WBC, and to you all on stream who were watching, that one of the Japanese players was holding up a Suzuki jersey. I had just realized that was actually for Seiya Suzuki, who was going to be on the roster.
Oh.
Yeah, he was going to be on the roster, but he was injured. He's dealing with an injury, so he couldn't play in the WBC, which is obviously a huge heartbreaker for a guy who's seen a lot of Major League pitching already. So I realized that's what it's for. Now, I could be wrong on that again, but I'm fairly certain.
We need the articles. We need Mad Dog's opinion. We need to know.
We don't need Mad Dog's opinion. We have mine.
Fair enough.
No, but the Cubs.
But either one of those Suzukis are more than willing.
Yes.
And to kind of branch it a little bit, the reason I'm excited about the Cubs, they do have great pieces, but a lot of injuries took them down last year. And then we can get into some of the new signings that they got. But also, I have a big question mark attached to that, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah. So my thought with the Cubs is it's a big question mark in that it could be really good, could be really, really good, or could go really, really poorly. I don't think there's an in-between scenario. I think they either win 90 games and are in contention for a wild card spot, or they win 65 games and are completely out of it by July 1st.
And I think the two biggest pieces of that are Dansby and Bellinger.
Yeah.
In terms of the new pickups.
Yes. I think Tyone.
We've talked about the injuries.
I'd throw Tyone in there as well, but he's not one that he's not one that, shall we say, moves the needle a ton in as far as like whether or not you're going to make the playoffs or not. Dansby and Bellinger are supposed to be those guys based on their contracts. Bellinger is on a 1-year, $17.5 million deal. Dansby's obviously on a 7-year, $177 million deal. So both those guys are getting their bread this year from the Cubbies. The only question is going to be, the only question of many is going to be, what do you get out of Bellinger? And what do you get out of Dansby? Because Dansby has really only had, if you really put it together, a season plus of, granted, really, really good play, but he's only had a season plus. And Bellinger has never, ever come close in the years since his 2019 MVP season, which I would argue was just an MVP first half. Second half, he was pretty pedestrian. I mean, he was still good, and it was close to, a 300 slash line and like an 8 something OPS. I can't remember exactly what his splits were in 2019, but his first half was otherworldly. Second half, not as much. He hasn't even come close to sniffing that since then, even in the postseason. It's like in 2020, he had a couple great plays defensively, and he had the back-breaking home run against Atlanta. But Dansby, by and large, he too, like Bellinger, hasn't had a prolonged period of success. Now, obviously, Bellinger has a rookie, or had a rookie record before Pete Alonso broke it, but he had a rookie home run record when he first came up in 17. And he's been around for a few years, right? But
Lewis, baby.
It's one of those things where you just don't know what you're going to get from him. And obviously, he makes up for any kind of, shall we say, obvious flaws with just freak athleticism. Like, he's a really good athlete, and he's going to figure out something. He has to, right? But what he figures out is still, again, another question mark. I don't know what that's going to be.
You know, it's funny because you have the big question mark. I agree with you generally on it too. I think Trey Mancini is probably my favorite out of the 3 acquisitions that they have. But I wrote this down twice and I didn't realize it because I was mentioning Bellinger and Mancini and, of course, Dansby with the high risk, high reward contract. The 2 questions that I said over and over again: was it worth Contreras?
I'm going to say no.
I don't think so either.
But
I really don't. But they had to do it. I understand that. St. Louis offered him a heck of a deal. They knew Yachty was retiring. I understand that. But was the return worth it? I don't think so. But at the same time, they do have a lot of great pieces. They have to remain healthy. I'd say majority of them have to. It's not like if 1 or 2 goes down, they'll be fine. All of them have got to be there and ready to go.
Yeah.
I have a soft spot for the Cubs. So does the Carey family. And I guess with the NL Central, that's just how life is. Well, I guess NL East with the Braves, but you get where I'm going with that.
Yep, totally.
I'm excited to see what happens, but I think your take on the win spread is exactly right. They could go with 56 or they could go with 86. I don't think they're a 90-win team yet, like some of the guys in the NL East, but I'm excited for them. Look, they won one in 2016, but they have a legacy of failure as well. I'd be okay with them winning the NL Central.
Yeah. We're going to get into this next week when we do kind of a big picture season look and kind of make more prediction, have a prediction oriented episode. But sure. My thing with this new kind of format for the year, as far as the schedule goes, where everyone plays everyone, I think that the disparity is going to narrow a little bit. And I don't think you're going to see teams win, maybe 1 or 2 teams will lose 100 games, but outside of that, I think you're going to have that gap between the top teams and the middle teams specifically kind of narrow a little bit. And I think the Cubs are one of those teams that could classify as a, previously kind of bottom to mid-tier team. They could be on the other side of that by halfway through the season. I don't know. That's why I personally love 162 games, because you have a whole, season and a full season to prove yourself. So it could be a lot closer together than you think, which makes for better theater for us.
Well, and look, even with the disparity, nobody's going to come close to the 1899 Cleveland Spiders. I had to look them up because they are the worst record in baseball. So this is a minimum of 120 games. They went 20-134. I don't think that'll ever happen again. And for today's comparison, that'd be 21-141. So they gained 1 more win if we adjusted it on a 162 game schedule.
Oh.
And the reason for that was it was for sure a conflict of interest. They sent all of their great players to the St. Louis Perfectos at that time, who then became the Cardinals, I believe. Oh no, I think they might have been the Browns. Beside the point. Foolish Baseball, great video on that if you want to learn more about it. But I really like the new schedule dynamic too, and we can talk about that more next week too.
Yeah, that'll be a talking point for next year, especially. Unless you have any other final thoughts on the Cubs, I want to move to the Cardinals, because this is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, I don't have a huge amount of thoughts on the Cardinals besides Contreras in all caps. And also Chip Carey.
Yeah, I don't either. More of the same. Chip Carey's a new play-by-play guy. Contreras, we talked about. I think a funny mini storyline is going to be Lars Nootbaar kind of dangling that gold medal in the WBC over some of his teammates, specifically Tommy Edman, who played for Korea. And obviously Japan and Korea have quite a bit of bad blood, especially in the WBC, but just in general. So there's that element of it. Obviously the Cardinals are a good team. I think Oli Marmol did a good job in his first year getting them to the first round. I don't know what happened, but the St. Louis Demon Magic in the postseason kind of flipped toward Philadelphia. That usually happens the other way, where it's Philadelphia coughing up a big lead at home. But at least to the Cardinals, it's some weird demon magic. I don't know what happened, but we'll expect the Cardinals to be fully in contention as well this year. Contreras is a huge pickup. Obviously, Yachty and Pujols retiring is huge. Pujols had a big kind of, big last hurrah, but you feel like that took away from kind of the baseball side of the narrative. But it's exciting to see what they do with this year. I mean, every offseason when we kind of look toward opening day and the start of the season, it's always exciting because you have new players in different places and you have guys on big contracts. Can they deliver? And Contreras is obviously one of the premier catchers in the sport. So it's an interesting dynamic.
I think the Cardinals, besides Contreras, I don't think they made a bunch of moves besides that. And I think they were like Houston in that way where I feel like they didn't need to. It's really just when it comes to performance in the postseason, that's just when it has to happen. And I think the Mets got a little bit of that too. Obviously, they had a stacked team, but they just didn't perform against the Padres. And like I said, kind of like the Houston, you don't want to fix something that isn't broken. You just want to put a nice little decal on it. And I think that's what Contreras was and is.
Yeah. So and they'll still be a good team. They're going to win 90 plus. They'll be in the postseason, barring a huge series of setbacks as well.
Yeah. And I was surprised that Waino came back. I thought it was going to be the big three of Yachty and Pujols and Waino all going to retire at the same time. They even set it up to where they're walking into the dugout at the same time. Holy shit, that scared me. That absolutely terrified me because all I saw was a demon ghost in the background. How are you? Yeah, so what are we talking about? Cricket?
Yeah, Rounders, actually.
Rounders. Oh, thank God. Well, actually, I could actually talk about
Rounders. My God. we need a history lesson.
No, but if I do that, and especially if she's here, I'll go into that, and it'll be 11 p.m. by the time I'm done. But
for those of you listening at home, Rounders was an original inspiration for the game of baseball. You thought Abner Doubleday created the game? You're dumb. Of course he didn't. He never even saw a baseball game and didn't know the difference between a baseball and a kumquat. But yeah, Cardinals. They're the Cardinals. They always seem to pull it out. I can't think of really any time where they were, kind of in the basement for the majority of a decade, maybe in their earliest iterations.
Yeah.
But even then, when Branch Rickey took over and he invented the farm system, thus changing baseball forever, kind of changed that, and it provided St. Louis, I think, the advantage for the rest of their existence to continually provide themselves with the best teams possible.
Yep. No, they'll be good again this year. I have no doubt. I'd be shocked if we see anything on the contrary. Switching gears to the Brewers, Corbin Burns last year in Milwaukee pretty much confirmed. There's no way he's going back. The Brewers decided to go to a really kind of tense, tetchy, really ticky-tack arbitration hearing to squeeze, $500,000 out of Corbin Burns, $500,000 less, that is. He did not sound thrilled about it. Obviously, there's a soundbite that went viral on social media, but basically him talking about the whole process. He was on a plane all of Valentine's Day for that arbitration hearing. I don't think there's any way that he's staying in Milwaukee after this year. He's a free agent after the year, so he's going to be pitching for a new team. Brewers, for whatever reason, decided to piss off their best pitcher. I don't know that that's smart, but they, I guess, know better than we do than to do that, but we'll see. He's gone either way, I think.
Yeah, and that was just not a good look from the Brewers organization. Even with the pickups that they had, they were good. I mean, like Winker and Toro were a couple of good things, but consolation prizes, I think you'll find that with the San Francisco Giants as well. We'll talk about them a little bit down the line. But I'm kind of trying to go into my notes here and trying to bring it all together. I was just like, yeah, Winker and Toro are good pickups. Now, please do something. They have pieces to make it work. I mentioned Willy Adames. Obviously, we lose Colton Wong to the Mariners. Go M's. Thank God for that. I'm really just sad for Yelich
Yeah.
because I was really excited when he came up in the league, and it sounds like I don't know if this is true or not, but I want to say that part of the reason for the dips in his performance was because of the lack of organizational cohesion, number one. Not as extreme as the 4 teams we talked about before, obviously, because it seems that they're still trying to push for a contention. But uh, the pieces just don't seem to perform. And that's what it's going to tie into my last note, is like big names that need some big production, because they're going to lose Adames in 25, lose a couple of other players in 24, 25. So if they're going to do something, they best do it now.
Yeah, their window
Otherwise,
is
they're going to go back to the sweet nothings of mediocrity.
their window is closing, and it's closing quickly. They better do something this year. And we saw what happened last year when they traded Josh Hader to San Diego. It completely deflated the entire team. And it's not because they don't feel like Devin Williams isn't ready to be a closer. He's more than ready to be a closer. It's more so just like Hader's one of the core pieces of their team, especially when they were, making runs at the pennant in 18 and 19. It's such a deflating feeling to see one of your best players get traded at the deadline when you yourselves are in contention. That to me was, they weren't, leading the division, and they weren't kind of leading the wild card. They were on the periphery a little bit. But does that mean trade away Josh Hader? No, I don't think so. That deal was wild to me at the time. It still is.
Well, and that's why I'm thinking that this is more of an organizational thing, because the Hader deal definitely reminds me of the Randy Johnson deal with the Mariners in 97. In 95 and 96, I think he was injured most of that year. But the dude carried that team on his back for the 95 season, and he was pitching incredibly in the 97 season, but the ownership wouldn't do anything. They would keep him pat. They wouldn't compensate him for all the great work that he's done, and especially the work that he's done after recovering from an injury that took him out for most of 96. And so we scrapped him to Houston for basically nothing. And everybody on the bench was kind of like, well, why would we do that? You realize that Randy Johnson was our pitching. Who else did we have at that time? We had Bob Walcott, who was a prospect, but he was nowhere near that. I think we signed Heathcliff Slocum, a 5 ERA guy. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And that's why I think the organization has partly to do with it. Please have Yelich be good again, because I really liked him when he came up in the league. And it's really just to see him kind of wither away, sort of like Kutch on the Pirates. You know what I mean?
Right. And Kutch got a new lease of life also playing for Milwaukee, I believe, the Philadelphia Phillies as well. So hopefully Yelich will be able to have another earnest attempt to revive his career and to be that MVP caliber player we saw in 2018 and 19. So
is he a Yankee at some point? I'm looking this up.
McCutchen? I think he was. I think that sounds really familiar. I think he was a Yankee at some point.
But for like a season, you know what I mean?
Right, for a very short stint.
New York Yankees 2018, he was
18.
a Giant for 2018.
Yeah.
So half of the season, essentially. And now he was with the Brewers last year, 2022. Right. Phillies 2019 to 2021. But yeah, the bulk of his career, 2011 to 2015, he was an all-star, and he was with the Pirates from 09 to 17.
Yep. So maybe a similar story for Yelich. Who knows?
God free Yelich. And if that happens to Trout and Ohtani under Art Moreno, I will start throwing things.
Yeah.
Like kitties.
I think there will be riots in Anaheim, actually.
Which is not good because Bella lives by the stadium, so I should probably have to stay here for that majority.
No, thank you. Free Ohtani and Trout, or at least get them to the playoffs one time together.
And if that means that the Mariners have to, no, I'm not.
No, you wouldn't dare. I was like, you sure you're okay? It's like, are you sure you're still you? Like, you feeling all right?
I think if they don't win it here pretty soon, I'm gonna die before they get to a World Series.
Oh,
I just
no!
don't want to have that thought.
No. Why would you say that on Brews and Baseball?
I'm a Mariner fan. Like, I grew up with the guys. I grew up in arguably their worst period, and that includes the 70s and 80s. Like, their worst period was the 2000s after, I'd say 2003 on, up until 2019 was just the dark ages for the Mariners. And I could go at length as to how terrible that was.
Yeah.
To the point where I just said I might even be a Yankee fan. That was how delusional I was.
Oh no.
That was
Oh
how
no.
delusional I was.
Oh no.
And then
Okay.
I got back out of it.
Well,
But
we
anyway,
better switch gears to another team before you start talking about that. Let's get into the Giants a little bit because I think they're an interesting one. Obviously, they were. What's that?
Oh, I just said he got this. So yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, they were in the conversation for Judge and Correa. Neither one of those went through.
First note.
Yeah. I was getting coffee with an old friend of ours who's an old colleague of mine who's a big Giants fan. And he was saying on Giants Reddit, there's a huge kind of, I can't wait to be used again, because so often apparently they've been used as leverage. They get this big deal and ultimately sign somewhere else, like most recently with Judge and also with Correa to some extent. But it's just like, we'll use, they'll get a good offer from the Giants and then use that as leverage to get an offer with the team they really want to go to. And I think Aaron Judge was one of the examples of those. Even though Judge kind of grew up a Giants fan, I mean, he's a Yankee and he will be a Yankee for the rest of his career unless he gets traded, which, we'll deal with that later. But yeah. Giants, in spite of that whole ordeal of missing out on both Judge and Correa, kind of two of the premier free agents this offseason, they went and got better. They got Mitch Haniger on a 3-year deal. They got Michael Conforto on a 2-year deal. They got Taylor Rogers on a 3-year deal. And they got Ross Stripling on a 2-year deal. So they've got a little bit of short-term help for a team that is, they're, I don't know what to make of them because 2021 was such an aberration because they won 107 games and won the division, but ultimately had a losing record last year. I think they're one of the first teams ever to do that, if not the first. Or first in a long time.
Oh, I think the Mariners are kings of that. That's beside the point. I think we went from 116 to 90 to 60 or something like that. So yeah, but look, yes, did they get better? Absolutely they did. I think they were all consolation prizes, if you want me to be perfectly honest with you. Mitch Haniger is the highest paid player on that team right now for a 3-year deal, and I don't know why that rubs me the wrong way. If you're going to have Mitch Haniger be the highest paid player, I think you'd have to give him to at least a 5-year deal or more. I hate to see Haniger go, but with the returns that the Mariners got, I understand. That's fine. Like, literally, my second note was, how is he paid the most? Especially if you have people like B. Craw that have been there for a while, that have kind of anchored that team. And then Rodona's gone, so I can't really talk about him anymore.
Yeah. They've still got Jock Peterson. Jocktober re-signed. He's one of the only players to accept the qualifying offer.
But this is my last note on San Francisco, is that if they're to make a push, gotta do it now, because all of their players, including the new signings that they got, are at least 30 or north.
Yeah.
And that ain't good.
Yeah.
They need to have a little bit more youth in that ball club, I think.
Yeah.
But we'll see. They might have a tear again. Last year might be a fluke. We'll find out.
Yeah. I will say, though, how cool it is, and this is less I think it'll be a good signing, and more so how cool it is for the Giants to sign Taylor Rogers, the twin brother of Tyler Rogers, and to have them be teammates, I think is so cool. Just for
how infuriating would that be for a substitute teacher?
Oh, T. Rogers, present.
Yeah.
No, I think it's just super cool. It's like, having siblings be teammates was cool. Like having the Contreras brothers in the All-Star game, that was a cool moment. But like the Rogers are twins. That's got to be in, like, you have, Reese and I often joke we share one singular brain cell. These guys actually, twins have a lot in common typically, beyond obviously they're very similar time of birth and like sharing a womb with each other, but a lot of like characteristics tend to be the same with twins. And I'm sure this is just such a cool experience, not only for them, but for their parents as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that's pretty cool.
No, I'm excited about it too. I think most of the time we see a lot of brothers face off against each other. But and maybe even fathers and sons going on the same team. I think of the Griffies. I think of the Bonds. The Bonds didn't play with each other, but Bonds was a coach, and Barry was playing for the Giants, obviously. So that's good stuff. But consolation prizes, I think. I think they need to pick up at least either Aaron Judge or Correa. I understood why both of those fell through. The Yankees had to pick up Aaron Judge, and Correa's ankle is probably just as fragile as the NFT economy right now.
Yep.
Or at least Silicon Valley banks. That's... We talked about him at the last week in the podcast. I can't talk about him anymore. I know your feelings about Altuve, but I think your feelings for Altuve are mine for Correa.
Yeah. They go hand in hand.
And that's all I'll say about
that. Speaking of that 2017 World Series, Reese, the team on the receiving end of that, the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Look, as a Dodger fan, I've got some notes, so you better. And I'm gonna be so picky. So
I will say this. The Dodgers in 2023 are the kings of one-year deals for one reason and one reason only. That reason is Shohei Ohtani's impending free agency. They have not signed a single player on that team to a long-term deal other than Mookie Betts, who is already on a long-term deal. They have not signed a single player on their team to a long-term deal because in 2023, or the end of 2023 season, 2024 offseason, they are going heavy after Shohei Ohtani. They're going to build their franchise around Ohtani for the next 7 to 10 years. And they're going to go after Ohtani with a deal that nobody's going to be able to match because they have the flexibility to do so. They have JD Martinez, 1-year deal. Noah Syndergaard, 1-year deal. Miguel Rojas, I believe he's on a 1-year deal. Jason Hayward, 1-year deal. You look at beyond the pitching staff, 1-year deals everywhere. This is to clear up financial flexibility for the 2024 season to have Shohei Ohtani be a Dodger. That's all I'll say on that. They're still going to be a wagon this year. They're still going to win close to 100 games, if not 100 plus. You hate losing Gavin Lux for the year with a ACL injury, but they'll be okay. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. They'll be okay. They're going to get Ohtani. Dodgers fans, don't worry. You're getting Ohtani.
Okay. Here's where I'll go in. This is probably the most mad dog that I will be tonight. And I'm going to tie it in first. This was my second note, but to tie it back in with your comment, Trey Turner was a big loss. And my main concern was who is going to pick up that mantle? And I was trying to do the question marks through the 1-year deals. JD Martinez, Rojas. I don't know. I was really concerned by the 1-year deals, and just the fact by the take that you had gives me a little bit of reassurance. I didn't think about that, and also I just don't trust Artie Moreno, so that's just me. But well, as a Dodger fan, do we have a lot of pieces, and especially compared to the Mariners and my fandom with that, are the Dodgers way more set? Yeah, I think they will. I think they're at least good for 100 wins of the year. But here's kind of my hot take right now. Before I get to my hot take, my third note was like, yeah, sure. I mean, Thor. We'll see how that works. I don't think he's ever gotten back to Mets form in the previous teams that he's been with. But here's my take on this. And I think you might be able to sympathize with me a little bit on this. This is not a disparaging of the man personally. I think Dave Roberts has got to go. I am not a fan of his managerial style. You have so many pieces. I don't want him to turn into a Kevin Cash where he takes out Blake Snell after 72 pitches. He guaranteed a World Series before they started the freaking season. You don't freaking do that. Like, as soon as he went on Dan Patrick and did that, I literally started to cry because I knew at that moment there was no way they were going to win the World Series. Sure, was it just a feeling that I had? Absolutely. Are all of my opinions true and are worthy? Absolutely not. I'm a tertiary. I'm the guy in the bleachers just yelling stuff, half drunk, shirts off. It's July in Chicago in Wrigley Field in the 1980s. I probably am smoking a couple of heaters. But and it's not even for a specific reason. I'm just very concerned about managerial wise because it's not necessarily for the season. I think the players can pick up the slack for the season in terms of their talent, their cohesion as a team. But where managerial stuff really comes in is the postseason, and that's up. And the one time that we won in 2020, I don't want to say that like it was a BS title because of COVID, but it doesn't satisfy my soul. I think we need to win another one. Especially with how the Dodgers organization and how well they're run, the type of capital that they got, I think rivals the Yankees in a lot of ways and the Mets with maybe a little bit of a little bit less of recklessness. I just want to see somebody else at the helm and see what happens.
I mean, so I get what you're saying, and I know that's a lot of the commentary around Dave Roberts is his decision making in kind of crunch time in the postseason, and some of the decision, you go back to 2021, the decision to bring in Max Scherzer to close out a game, and then he goes against the Braves and gives up a homer to Peterson. And you go on like Urias, same kind of principle. You put him in relief, and then he has to start a game. He doesn't have the same amount of gas, and then he gets hit hard by the Braves. You could, and then 22. Obviously, you could go any which way with this against the Padres. My thing with Dave Roberts is basically like it's. Look, I'm not a Dodgers fan. Like I got to see the organization up close, not specifically from the front office, but I got to see how the organization is run. I have a lot of respect for the Dodgers as a team, as a franchise. I honestly don't think there's another manager in baseball who is looking for a job or needs a job that could do what he does better than him. Because the only other person to me that comes to mind who has the same ability as a modern baseball manager is Alex Cora, and Cora still has a job. And I'm not saying that because of any of the cheating.
Because the only reason I'm laughing is because it's just like, if Alex Cora's available, I will take him.
But that's the thing. He's the only other manager.
In Boston. I get it. Yeah.
But he's the only other manager who I'd be comfortable if I was a Dodgers fan as manager, because Cora has developed and shown, and obviously Dave Roberts has this too, he's developed and shown an ability to, as a baseball guy through and through, someone who has tremendous feel for the game as it is played, or as it was played and has been played historically, to be able to understand the analytics and in tandem with conventional baseball wisdom, and using the analytics not as your driving factor, cough, cough, Kevin Cash, but as a supplement to what you believe should be happening. So if you as a manager have an instinct as to what you should be doing, you're able to understand what are the underlying analytics saying about that move. Now, obviously Roberts catches a lot of criticism for the moves that he makes, specifically in the postseason. But in the postseason, all of that gets magnified, because if what you do works, you're a genius. If it doesn't work, you're a fraud. You're terrible. You don't know what you're doing. Roberts has been on the wrong end of that, in my personal opinion, more often than he should be. And is it because he's making big decisions in big moments? Absolutely. Should he be making those big decisions in those big moments? I don't know for sure. I'm not a big baseball. I'm not like I didn't play at the major league level. I don't work with analytics people, with baseball front offices on a day-to-day basis. I don't know for sure. But
oh, and I'm an expert, so we're good. Yeah.
yeah. So and you and I don't work together in a baseball front office on a daily basis. So who's really to say?
This is just purely the win songs of boys and a tertiary. We're both on the bleachers together, half drunk, smoking heaters, just yelling at the umpire to call a strike when it was clearly a ball.
Yeah.
But that's why I said at the top that I'm very picky. But I think this isn't the best way to say it, but I think you'll understand the kind of tone I'm going for. With a team like the Dodgers, I think fans are allowed to have a certain amount of pickiness. Like I said at the top, it is not a criticism of Dave Roberts as a person. I think the main thing that I would want to see is a shakeup in that managerial spot to see if that wakes up the boys. Because in the postseason, that's when they need to go. The Mets have the same problem. They have, I think, just as powerful of an organization, mostly through spending and not through the moves that the Dodgers make. But I'd take Dusty. I would take Dusty over him. And this would have been before he won in Houston. Yeah, that's how insane I am. That is how insane I am.
Well, look, I think it just comes down to, is it a case of Roberts isn't the right fit or the message isn't getting across? Because a lot of times it can be the right fit, but the message just isn't getting across. And that is also a problem. That could be a problem too. So I don't know that manager is the issue with the Dodgers. I think there's just an underlying kind of roster construction, as in they're trying to play Moneyball when they don't have to. They're a team. The reason the Dodgers are so good in the regular season is because they're able to find value in undervalued pieces, right? That's kind of the name of the game in Moneyball, is you find the value and you extract as much value as you can out of the pieces that you can find with limited budget constraints. Fortunately for the Dodgers, they don't really have financial constraints, right? Not along the lines of Tampa Bay and Oakland that, are known for being frugal, shall we put it that way. They can spend money. I mean, I had to correct myself because, it's not just Mookie Betts. Freddie Freeman's also, of course, on a long-term contract. I don't know how I forgot that one. I forgot that he's out of Braves purgatory for a year, so we can recognize Freddie Freeman as first baseman for the Dodgers, not that guy who left Atlanta. Exactly. So Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts are the only long-term kind of expensive deals in the Dodgers. But my point still stands. I still think they're going to get Ohtani next year. Quote me on this for sure. I was wrong about DeGrom. I said late 21, Jacob DeGrom is going to be a Dodger in 2023. That's obviously not the case. But, I think for Ohtani, everything is lining up for them. They have a bunch of one-year deals that are going to expire at the end of the year unless they sign contracts, people get hurt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I still think that's probably and they have the most alluring package for a guy like Ohtani, who's been stuck in Anaheim for the last couple of years. It's like, dude, you are the generation, you are the, once in a lifetime talent. We want to keep you in the same area so you have a level of comfort, right? He's developed a level of comfort in Southern California, but we want you to play for a historic franchise, but above that, a winning franchise, a team that has won 111 games, 106 games, 43 games in a 60-game season, which was bonkers to me. Still is in 2020. I think all the pieces are lining up for Ohtani, but that's for end of season episodes when we get around to it.
And I've made it clear I'm being very picky about Dave Roberts. He is a great manager. I want to make that clear off of the top.
Mm-hmm.
I just would like to see that scenario play out. What I will defend with Mr. Roberts is that I think a lot of people would classify him as a push button manager. He has a lot of pieces. All he's got to do is slot it in the right place. But they also said the same thing about Casey Stengel, and I think who was the Yankee manager for their dynasty in the 50s and 60s. And I think the reason that we can make these comparisons for both is because they both know which buttons to push. Maybe not Dave Roberts at the end of the season or in the postseason, but I can't think of any glaring decisions where that's happened, like the Kevin Cash. But It's just a feeling that I have, and a hypothetical situation that I'd love to see. And Dodgers are one of those organizations where I think they could take that risk. Hey, let's bring La Russa out. Let's see what happens.
I think you and I both know how poorly that. No, you tried to get the bit across, but you and I both know that's going nowhere. I do want to move on to
before halfway through the season.
Yeah, right. I do want to move on to one of the last teams we have before we get to. Yeah, we got two more teams to get through. Let's start with the Diamondbacks because I don't really have a lot on the Diamondbacks other than Corbin Carroll, very, very fast, just signed a long-term extension. He's going to be around for a little bit in Arizona. Alec Thomas is a promising prospect, but I think they were saying he spent a lot of the year at AAA last year. I think end of the season at AAA, but obviously one for the future. They're building something. They're trying to build something in Arizona. Zach Gallen is a solid starter. I think he's flown under the radar given his status in Arizona, not a huge market. But I think they're a team you don't necessarily want to play when your season's on the line and you have to go to Arizona for a 3-game set, and all of a sudden you have to go up against Zach Gallen, who has been quietly one of the best pitchers in baseball. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So I don't have any major notes on the Diamondbacks because I do want to spend a little bit of time on the Padres before we wrap it up.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll probably be a little bit harsher on the Diamondbacks because I know they're trying to build something. Really, I just want Ketel Marte to come back to the Mariners. I knew that deal was stupid when we got rid of him. But here we are. And I also said I could either be so happy for Corbin Carroll, but I think I'm going to be really, really sorry for Corbin Carroll. Because while they're trying to build up an organization, the Diamondbacks, other than 2001, I just don't think. And then there are a couple of nitpicky things, like Mad Bum has 2 more years and he's 106. I don't get that. And a thing that could happen in the future in terms of their young core that they're trying to build is that Gurriel Jr. and Ahmed are going to be free agents next year.
Yeah.
So it's going to be decision time of whether they want to really keep and bank on this core, or they stick with them, sign them to long-term deals, but I don't think they have the cash that the rest of the NL West has. And so we'll have to see how that dynamic will play out later on. I have a soft spot for the Diamondbacks because they're kind of the underdogs of the NL West for the past 54 and a half years. Besides the Padres, I would say. But now that the Padres have boosted quite a bit and taken down the Mets in the postseason, let's just get to them.
Yeah. I will say briefly before I get to the Padres, Corbin Carroll of Seattle, half Asian, half Taiwanese. Corbin Carroll of Seattle.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Blake Snell and Corbin Carroll are the two guys that I know that are well, technically Blake Snell was a Shoreline boy, but that's basically Seattle, kind of like Cobb County compared to Atlanta,
Yeah. Lakeside, I don't know where that is in Seattle, but
and he talks just as funny as I do, so it makes it or at least in terms of accent, at least in terms of how we talk. So it just makes me feel better.
Oh my God.
When I hear him in interviews, I was like, oh, I'm not the only guy.
Oh, it's not just it's like, what are you, Italian or something?
No, it's not even that he's Italian. It's just like, oh my God, it's a different voice besides the, hi, I'm a baseball player. I really enjoy being here, being a part of this organization. Blake Snell just is like, yeah, it's like, and I really vibe with that.
I think we all should vibe with that. All right. I think this team, I think San Diego is kind of like the sexy team to be a fan of now. I really do. I think it's like everyone's kind of jumping on the San Diego bandwagon.
My first note, I kid you not, was even as a Dodger fan, I am slightly rooting for them. Don't like their jerseys. I've never liked their jerseys. That is the only nitpicky thing I have about it. But even as a Dodger, like, look, if you pick up Zandy Pandy, you sign Yu Darvish, that deal might be tough coming down the line because I think they signed him until his year 42, which not great because I don't think that his talents will last that long. You pick up Nelson Cruz for a DH sort of a situation. I think the DH rule goes into effect this year, doesn't it?
No, it was last year. Last year was the first year of the universal DH.
Yeah, I thought so too, but like because of MLB The Show, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, MLB The Show got that one wrong in 22. They should have had that as a thing, but it went into effect in 21 or after 21. So 22 was the first year of pitchers not hitting anymore unless you're Shohei Ohtani.
I'm very excited to see what they do. I would love to see them beat the Mets again because that still fills me with joy that I can't even describe in words.
Hey, you're saying it, not me. So I'm gonna bite my tongue on this one.
Look, I would prefer if the Dodgers won over the Padres. You bet, but I'm kind of excited for the Padres. It's kind of, another legacy of failure. It's kind of like the Diamondbacks, It's kind of like the Mariners. You know, they finally get a good team going for them, especially the Padres with the pickups that they've had.
And the fact that the Padres are the only professional sports team in San Diego right now is kind of like this is their, it's a big deal now in San Diego when the Padres are good. And I really want to go to a game a pod like in San Diego this year, not just when they come to LA. Like I want to go down to San Diego and go to a Padres game because I feel like if they are as good as we think they're going to be this year, then those games are going to be electric. And I'm happy that games in San Diego don't get blacked out so that when the Braves go play the Padres and vice versa, we can actually watch it. Gotta love MLB TV and its blackouts. I'm just excited for the Padres.
Beef with being a Dodgers fan is that I can't watch the games. I got to have the Spectrum Mocha Choca BS, and I just can't do that.
Yeah, no, not what you want, truly, especially when you're trying to watch good baseball.
If you get MLB TV, you got to get everything.
Exactly.
And I know financially they'll probably say, well, we can't do that because... And then I will say one more time again, so Bill Veeck, one of the greatest owners of all time, even though he was kind of a belligerent drunk, in terms of the contributions he's made to the game, he tried things in order to get fans to come out to the ballpark, and one of the big ones was radio. People are like, we can't have regular radio and television broadcasts. If people have that option and the weather's bad, they just won't come to the ballpark. It's like, well, have you ever considered the fact that you might be creating new fans that might not be as close to the San Diego area as you would like? Maybe further into Nevada, maybe down in Mexico. That kind of stuff. And it's just like, but we could go on for hours about that.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the Padres. Change your jerseys, but other than that, just keep going.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but something else. It's like with Dave Roberts as a manager. I don't know, but something else.
You're just like, I don't know, but this isn't it. I don't know what it is. It's not this.
If you wanted evidence as to why I shouldn't be a major league owner or analyst, there you go, Internet. I just gave it to you. I don't know, but let's see what happens.
Oh my God. Listen. The Padres bandwagon, I think, should be full, if not beyond capacity this year. They, to me, are the exciting kind of hot button team to watch. Yeah. Obviously, it'll be a full year of Juan Soto, full year of Xander Bogaerts, obviously, Matt Carpenter joining the squad, Robert Suarez and Nick Martinez both signing extensions. So, look, the pieces are there. The pieces are there for the Padres to go out and win the thing. Josh Hader, full year of him. So the pieces, I think, for the Padres to wrestle control of the NL West away from the Dodgers, the pieces are there. It's just, can they actually do it? Right. And I think they have I think the right manager for the job. I think Bob Melvin is one of the best managers in baseball. That was, I think, one of the, like, if the Dodgers could have gotten Bob Melvin, I would be more than happy for that. But Oakland, I don't know what's going on with them. If that's another kind of ownership situation, whether they're moving or what have you, we just don't know. But Bob Melvin used to be the manager for the Mariners, but obviously during the times when the organization didn't give him the pieces that he needed to be successful, I knew that when we got rid of him, it was stupid. So I'm very excited for the Padres. Yeah. The Padres are going to be one to watch this season for sure. I think I'd circle a few teams as kind of ones to watch this year. You know, going back at the ones we talked about in the National League rather. I obviously the big three in the NL East, you have to keep your eye on all of them. I think the Cubs for sure have to watch them. The Dodgers rather always must see TV, so you got to watch the Dodgers, and then the Padres. You got to keep an eye on what the Padres are doing this year. Like I have a few teams that I just follow with the MLB app just to keep in the know on all of them. I think all of those teams are on them except for maybe the Cubs and the Phillies and the Mets. But I'm gonna get the Phillies and the Mets just by way of being a Braves fan anyway. So because we play each other so often. So we have 15 interesting teams this year in the National League. 15 very interesting teams in the American League. I think we're ready for the season. I wish it started tomorrow, but we'll go into that in our next our preview episode next Wednesday/Thursday. And remember, folks, for the first time now, Brews and Baseball is available on all major podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Audible/Amazon. Be sure to check us out in those three places, as well as the website if you're interested in that, anchor.fm/Brews and Baseball. That's all one word. But man, we got a lot of stuff got through a lot this episode, and I think we're ready for a really exciting season. Just one more week to go. Any final thoughts really on either the beer or baseball or both or neither? Just general final thoughts.
No, I'm genuinely very excited. I just hope that I'm able to see a lot of the games and that they won't be blacked out. I think that's really the main thing. Also, a disclaimer off of the top: we are not experts at this.
No.
Again, tertiary. We're the upper deck perspective, if you will. Just baseball fans that like to talk about it, to provide the entertainment value for all of the people, not necessarily from the place of generating the clicks and the likes like certain sports entertainment organizations do these days.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited for the season, and of course, another season starts on Friday, which is the MLB The Show 23 season. I'm just over the moon about that. We get a new chance of a new game where I can reset and go back into a hole and just play games for hours and hours and hours, and that's just going to be great. But yeah, what a time, what a place. What do you say we take them home? I don't have anything to say about the beer. I think I'm holding right here. While porter isn't necessarily my favorite, this was very good. I drank them both with gusto. And thank you to Dudes Brewing. And Owen, what do you say we take them home?
We're taking them home.
Your next thoughts.
Yeah, no, we're taking them home. I'm just excited for the season. I wish it started tomorrow and not next Thursday, but still, I think the Braves actually play the first game of the year, which I don't remember being the case a lot, but they get the first game of the year. So actually, now that I think about it, no, that's not true. They were playing at the same time as one of the first games of the year in 2021, and Pablo Sandoval hit like a 2-run game-tying homer, like a pinch hit homer, and it was crazy. I was like, wow, this team feels different. And they lost that game, obviously, but, c'est la vie. All right, well, that's Brews and Baseball, episode 8 of our podcast edition. Again, you can get this anywhere you get your podcasts. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for listening and showing love on our social medias. Remember, if you're not following us on social media, at Brews and Baseball Official on TikTok and Instagram, then what are you doing with your life? Drop us a follow there, otherwise we'll be sad, and you don't want us to be sad. We are excited, though, for the Major League season kicking off in just under a week, or just around a week by the time you're hearing this. It's almost here. The offseason is almost over, and we're almost ready to playing Major League Baseball for the first time in 2023, at least games that count. So, for Reese, I'm Owen. Thank you for listening. This has been Brews and Baseball, episode 8. We will see you next week for our first episode of MLB The Show 23 on Tuesday. Until next time, folks, thanks for joining us. We go!
We go!